see you guys in the dark.
This happened to me a few years ago. I was doing my master's and working in my dream school and city. Life was great, and I woke up to ready to conquer the day. Yes, I was one of those people. However, this incident sort of took it out of me, and I was low-key ready to get out. Throughout my master's, I was active on many dating sites. Tinder, Humble, Hinge, OkCupid, things like that. I would from time to time meet up with people and have a great time. This is one such story. One night, my third semester, I was hanging out with some friends and swiping left and right on Tinder. I matched with Tracy, who identified as she or her. We matched an hour later and started talking. She was great to talk to, very easy, and had a great sarcastic sense of humor. We clicked instantly. The only one thing that felt off was that she never really spoke about her personal life. As in, every time we would talk about jobs, families, pets, she would never really answer me. Or it would be very general. Like for work, she said, I sometimes work at a debt collector's office. When I asked her how was that, she says, I don't really know. I wrote it off as her not sharing to someone who would just be a hookup. Apart from joking, most of our chats were sexual in nature. I told her I wasn't looking for anything serious, and just wanted to have some fun from time to time. She shared the same feeling, and talked about how everything was so serious, and she too was just wanting to have some fun. We both kept talking almost all week, and every day she would ask me to come over. This started from the night that we matched. Within 2 hours of us talking, she asked me to come over. I was very busy that week, so I told her it wouldn't be possible. But she would without fail invite me over every night. She was also persistent, so it would go on for around 20 to 30 minutes, her asking me to come over, giving me ideas on how I can manage my work, and of course listing all the perks that I would get. However, I just couldn't find the time. During our conversations, I learned she primarily survived on her trust fund. Her parents were filthy rich. They had bought her a house where she lived alone. Eventually, at the end of our first week on Tinder, I asked Tracy to hang out. She was beyond ecstatic, but it soon turned into some sort of an argument. I was inviting her to my friend's party and bars afterwards, but she stayed put on the idea of me coming to her. We argued for about a solid hour, me trying to keep it fun and silly, but I could tell she was getting annoyed. At one point, she didn't text me back, and without thinking much, I went ahead to the party. A couple of hours later, she texted me asking for my friend's address. I sent it to her, and an hour later, she arrived. We met, and she was so much fun. She wasn't irritated anymore, and I was glad. We hung out with all of my friends. She was super funny, and all of them liked having her there. As my friends headed to the bars, I asked her to come back to my apartment. She agreed, and we left. We both talked, and then had a lot of fun. During our conversations, we had talked about kinks, and she said yes to everything, justifying it by her adventurer attitude. Now that I think about it, maybe it was a red flag. That night was no different. She didn't say no or even hesitated at anything that we did. I told her that it was okay to stay over if she wanted, but she denied and left around 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. There was one thing that happened a lot that night. I wasn't thinking with my brain, so I didn't catch it beforehand. But from the moment that we met, she kept pestering me on how I should have come to hers every chance that she got. She commented that her place would have been a much better idea. Even at the end, I remember her saying something like she couldn't have had to leave if it was her home. And I could have made her breakfast in the morning. She basically said it to the point where I got annoyed and promised her next time I would be at her place. We didn't speak much after that night. The conversation kind of died because of her general answers. I didn't much mind it. We did, however, talk enough to keep in touch, and every other day I would get asked to come over. I had some time off that following Wednesday, so I agreed. I asked her for her location, and she sent it to me. It was around 50 minutes away, outside of the city. I asked her if we could just meet when she was in the city, but her mood changed and cashed in the promise I made her last time we met. I felt bad, so I said yes, and she got super happy about it. I made the drive around 9 p.m., and nearing to her house, I realized how far I had actually come from the city, how tucked away it was. Now I see these things clearly, but back then it was just a hint of doubt, and then soon vanished as I saw Tracy at the door dressed up in a lingerie set. She pulled me inside, and we immediately got to it. After a few minutes, she stopped and asked me to go to her bedroom and wait. It was one on the first floor. She stayed on the main floor to go get something, and the entire time I was alone. I kept thinking this couldn't be a trust fund sponsored house. It was pretty big, and it was dirty, not maintained. Most of the furniture was old and ragged, except for a few newish things here and there. Her bedroom was very dimly lit, and blackout curtains were drawn. I spread them apart and let some light in. It was an almost empty room. Her bed frame seemed cheap and not sturdy. Her clothes were kept in a cabinet, one of those glass cabinets used for displaying china, crockery, awards, etc. She did have a vinyl player and a lot of records on the ground next to it. My gut was twisting and turning inside me just by walking around her room. A sort of self-help system went off, and I exited the room towards the stairs in the house. I was being quiet because I wanted to leave without her knowing. As I got close to the staircase, I heard her talking, and then I heard another person talking, and then I heard another person talking. I could hear 3 voices rapidly talking back and forth in a light hush. I still remember how I felt in that moment. My ears got hot, and my whole body tensed up. I walked to a window nearby, contemplating if I could break anything by jumping out. It wasn't feasible, so I just pumped myself up. I'm about 6 foot, 240 pounds, and began walking down the stairs as lightly as I could. I got halfway down and carefully listened. Their voices were coming from the opposite side of the main door. I got my car key out swiftly and rested my thumb on the unlock button. Once I mustered up the courage, which I felt like a lifetime, I ran off the stairs and straight to the door. There were 3 locks on it. Those twisty ones, by the way. As I was unlocking, I could hear Tracy calling me. I also felt more than one person shuffling towards me. I swung open the door and ran out to my car. I sat in and locked the doors as she said, "They're just my parents." She got to my car and rested her hand on the side mirror, still in her lingerie. She kept calling out my name. I could faintly see 2 people who didn't come out, but they were standing still at the doorway. A man and a woman. Without thinking twice, I put the car in reverse and flew out of there. I drove back in such a frenzy. The thing that messes with me the most, sends me chills down my spine even today, is a couple of words I could make out from their conversation. Someone said, "Well, do it your way then." Just some background on this story. I, a 24-year-old female, was about 21 at the time, and commuting a decent distance to school from my parents' house. My parents live in a small town, and based on what I observed in high school, the dating pool there is pretty slim. A couple of years ago, I was still adjusting to the adult dating scene. I was using Tinder, and though I'd been on a few dates and had a few hookups, it was mostly just situations where I either wasn't that interested in the guys, or it was strictly a one-night stand. There's a college town not too far from where I go to school, which is about 45 minutes from my parents' house, and I went on a few dates there. It's a cool city to hang out in, so it was always worth the journey even if a date didn't work out. The worst Tinder date I had at this point was one guy that went in for the kiss when I clearly wasn't feeling it. Like I cringed away as he went to kiss me, so his mouth caught the edge of my mouth as I turned away, while trying and failing to not make a face. Very awkward. But by no means something where I felt my life was in danger. Sometimes it just doesn't work out. However, this story is different. We chatted through text after matching on Tinder, and though he wasn't exactly my usual type, he was charming enough. He was a little bit of the stoner alternative type, and as a teenager, I'd gone through my own emo phase. He was funny and confident over the phone as well. I usually made it a rule for myself to chat on the phone at least once or twice before meeting up with guys, even just to gauge if he would be able to carry on a conversation. It's not the same when you're the only one texting. However, this was also to make sure that the pictures and the voice matched up with the person I was meeting. When you grow up watching forensic files, you know how bad the possible consequences can be from a bad date. We hit it off over the phone well enough to the point where I felt we should give hanging out a shot. We talked about how I went to karaoke night often at a local bar close to where I attended school. He said he and his friends like going to karaoke too. Great. He lived in a previously mentioned college town, and I agreed to attending karaoke night with him and his friends. He said they were hanging out at a local coffee shop near where he and his roommates lived, and I could meet them there. A girl he knew worked there as well, and he said he'd give me a coffee on the house. Before leaving, I texted one of my friends where I was going, just to be safe. When I arrived, I could clearly see into the coffee shop. I could see a group of 4 scraggly-looking dudes, and one girl behind the counter. As soon as I pulled up, I got a nagging bad feeling in my stomach. As soon as I got out of my car, the guy I had been chatting with left his group and came outside. He said they were leaving right now, so we should just go. Not that I really cared about the coffee, but what happened to the coffee that I was promised. I asked what exactly the plan was, and he said we were going to head back to his place before heading to karaoke. He didn't ask if I wanted anything from the shop, and didn't even ask if I wanted to come in. By this point, his friends came out, and they all got close to my car. I was getting pretty bad vibes at this point. He isn't acting charming or funny like before on the phone. Everything felt forced. There was an air from the group that they were only pretending to be friendly. Nobody introduced themselves, but they just kept saying how awesome karaoke at the bar was. The girl inside the counter was gone in the back of the shop, and because she was friends with them, I didn't know if I could trust her either. Thinking quickly, I said the plan sounded great, and I could drive and meet them there, that I didn't want to leave my car there. This apparently was a problem. The one car in the parking lot, which I had assumed was one of theirs, was the girls. They said they walked there, but it would be a lot better and faster if I just drove them back to the house. At this point, I'm panicking. Everyone's close to my car, and me. I tell them a stupid lie, and say that I have a bunch of stuff from school in my car, and it's pretty messy on top of that, so not everyone will be able to fit. Mind you, they are right by my car, standing in front of it. They can see through my windshield into it. It's got like a backpack in it, and that's about it. I just lie and say I'm kind of embarrassed because the floor is messy. I'm saying anything I can get to get out of this. I tell them that I'm really sorry, but if they order an Uber, I can just meet them at their place. I'm not budging on not letting them in my car. The guy I'm supposed to be on a date with tells the other guys to head back inside the coffee shop, and now I'm alone with him. He asks why I can't drive them. He tells me it's not a big deal, and that it's just easier if I drive everyone there. I stand firm that there's no room, and my car's messy. I tell him I promise to meet him at the place if they order an Uber, or just walk. Just text me his address. He says that it'll take too long to get back to his place, so I should just meet them at the bar instead. He won't give me his address. He texts me the address to the bar, and I apologize about the car thing. I tell him I'm so excited for karaoke, and that I'll meet him there. I smile and act as naturally as possible, and then I get in my car and try to drive normally while in view. As soon as I'm out of sight, I take off and just drive in a different direction haphazardly before heading back home. I was constantly watching in my mirrors to see if anyone followed me, and thankfully, nobody did. Not long after arriving home, I got multiple texts from him. He told me I was just another bitch pretending to be a nice girl. He told me I deserved to have my intestines ripped out, and that I should be hung from the rafters by them. He told me when I was going to burn in hell, and my sins against mankind would come back to haunt me. Clearly, I made the right call. People, always trust your gut. If you had a bad feeling, listen to it. You don't have to be nice. Do what you can to take yourself out of that situation, and let your friends know where you're going ahead of time. Who knows? Maybe the guy was ultimately harmless. But that's a risk I was not willing to take. I blocked his number and blocked him on Tinder. Never heard from him again. Though I doubt I'll ever encounter him again. Creepy Tinder guy. Don't contact me ever again. A few years ago, I was on a dating site where I matched with a police officer. I thought his dog was cute and figured this was my opportunity to finally pet a canine police dog. I was quickly disinterested after listening to him complain about his recent divorce. I don't recall details, but I remember it was very apparent he was the problematic person in the relationship. It was also really grossed out by how he fetished me for my big sloppers, tattoos, and colorful hair. I was very upfront and told him I wasn't interested, and that he was setting off some red flags for me. He begged me to give him a chance, but I said no, and then blocked his number. A few days later, I get a knock on my door at around midnight. My heart dropped into my butt. It startled me so much. I look out my peephole and see a stranger holding food. It's an Uber Eats delivery driver. I tell him through the door that I didn't order food, but he said someone else ordered it, and he knew my name. I asked him who ordered it, and he said a name I didn't recognize. I tell him I don't want the food, and give him directions to the dumpster to throw the food out, because at this point I have no idea if he is actually from Uber. Later on, I'm going through my dating app matches, and realize it was the cop's name. I go through my blocked messages, and this guy had texted me a lot. The last text, "I hope you liked your dinner. I decide it's best I unblock this man so that I can keep an eye on what he is saying in case I need to be worried about my safety. Or if I'm going to need to go buy some bear mace to drop a cop." A few weeks later, I'm at work. I'm a hairstylist, by the way, and I get a call from a number I don't recognize. I answer because I assume it's a new client. The voice on the other line says, "Hey Rachel, I'm at Starbucks across the street. What's your drink order?" I ask, "Who is this?" "I don't have you in my appointment book," assuming it's a regular, and I made a rescheduling error. He says his name again, and my heart drops into my butt yet again. How does he know where I work? I ask him how does he know where I live and work, and he explains that he did a reverse image search on my photos from my dating profile, found my social media and my Yelp page from my salon, then looked up your address from there. I tell him that I'm calling his station and reporting him for stalking, and if he ever comes near me, I will consider it a threat and will be ready to physically defend myself. After all that, he still begs me to give him a chance. I hang up, call the police station he works for. It's a very small town, and complain. They won't even let me email screenshots of my creepy texts. I could tell nothing would be done. The lady literally said, "Oh, I'm sorry. He's going through a lot right now." Literally treat it like he's a victim. He mostly left me alone after, but I was so scared living alone for the first time in my life. I have a semi-popular meme page on Instagram with about 8,000 followers. I sifted through and found like 5 of his accounts. I blocked them and move on. This was several years ago, but all these memories came flooding back when I noticed a familiar profile photo on an account who commented on a post of mine. I must have missed an account of his when blocking. I had posted a photo of me holding 2 big tunas I caught on a fishing trip, and he commented, "God, I wish I was one of those fish. I'd love to know what it's like to be held by you." Barf. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe, like, and hit the bell for notifications on future videos, and become a stalker of the night, and I'll see you next time.